You blink, and a whole year is gone. But when you were a child, a single summer felt endless. Why does time stretch in childhood and collapse in adulthood? What changed? Not the clock, but the mind watching it. When you're a child, everything is new. The first time you see snow, the first time you lose a tooth, the first day of school. Even boredom feels vivid. New experiences create dense memories, and your brain logs them in high resolution. That's why childhood feels rich and full. Time stretches, because every moment is deeply processed. But as we grow older, novelty fades. Routines replace wonder. You wake up, go to work, come home. The days blur. Your brain compresses the ordinary because it's seen it all before. And in that compression, time seems to shrink. It's not that life is shorter now. It's that your mind records less of it. This is known as time compression. And it's one reason adult life can feel like it's rushing past. When your experiences are repetitive, your memory makes fewer bookmarks. Without those markers, time feels like it's slipping through unnoticed. But there's another layer. Children live more mindfully, not in the spiritual sense, but in the neurological one. They pay attention because everything demands attention. A leaf, a sound, a shadow. Their world is loud and curious. Adults, we're multitasking, thinking ahead, checking our phones. Presence gets sacrificed for productivity. And so, the river of time flows faster, not because it's moving quicker, but because we're no longer swimming in it. We're watching from the shore. Do you remember the first time you traveled to a new city? The smells, the colors, the foreignness of every detail. How your mind soaked it all in. The texture of the pavement, the shape of street signs, the sound of unfamiliar birds. That day felt full. Now think about a regular Tuesday last month. What do you remember? What stood out? Probably nothing. This isn't about memory. It's about perception. Your brain doesn't log every passing second equally. It prioritizes moments that are new, challenging, or emotionally charged. Everything else, it gets smoothed over, turned into routine, filed away as normal. This is the routine trap. The idea that the more familiar life becomes, the less of it we seem to experience. As children, our world is constantly expanding. Each year is filled with firsts. The first day of school, the first sleepover, the first heartbreak. Every corner of life is uncharted territory. And because the brain is working hard to make sense of it all, time stretches. One summer can feel like a lifetime, because in some ways, it is. By adulthood, many of us have carved deep grooves into our days. We wake, we work, we wind down, rinse, repeat. Novelty fades. The grooves become tracks. And soon, the train is moving so fast you barely notice the scenery outside. This isn't your fault. In fact, it's by design. The brain is a pattern-seeking machine. It automates anything it can, not to dull your life, but to optimize it. Why waste energy on something you've done 1,000 times? But that efficiency comes at a cost. The erosion of presence. When the mind isn't needed, it wanders. You start to lose time, not in hours or days, but in richness, in depth, in meaning. This is why childhood feels longer and adulthood feels faster, even though the seconds tick the same. It's not about age. It's about attention. Think of your life like a book, each chapter full of vivid pages, characters, events. Routine compresses those chapters. It turns pages into bullet points. Eventually, You're skimming your own life. But here's the hopeful part. You don't need to escape your job, move to a new city, or reinvent your identity to feel time slow down. You just need to wake up within the routine. Try brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand. Take a different route home. Eat something you've never tasted before. Small acts of intentional disruption can reignite the brain's attention. They create edges in your day, landmarks that the mind can hold on to. Because the more edges you create, the more space you give time to stretch. When life feels like it's slipping through your fingers, it's not always about doing more. Sometimes, it's about noticing more. Notice the smell of the air before rain, the texture of a book's cover, the moment between your breath in and your breath out. These are the anchors that slow the hourglass, not by adding scent, but by making each grain feel heavier. Let this be a quiet reminder. Time doesn't just pass. It's sculpted by attention, emotion, and choice. You may not control the speed of the train, but you can choose to look out the window. And in that choice, time softens. Have you ever noticed how certain moments, even the smallest ones, feel like they last forever? The seconds before bad news, the night before a big decision, the slow, aching stretch of a final goodbye. Time, in those moments, bends. It doesn't follow the rules of the clock. It moves with emotion, thickening when we feel deeply, thinning when we don't. This is one of the mind's quiet secrets. Emotion is a magnifier, and it's also one of the reasons life feels slower in childhood. Children feel everything intensely. The joy of an ice cream cone, the sting of a scraped knee, the excitement of a school trip. Their emotional dial is turned all the way up, and because of that, their moments feel longer, richer, more real. As adults, we get better at managing emotion, or rather, muting it. We push discomfort aside. We filter joy through skepticism. We intellectualize instead of feel. It's not wrong. It's a form of protection. But that protection has a cost. Our memories become thinner. Our days blur. Because when nothing feels significant, nothing sticks. You see, memory isn't a perfect recording. It's a patchwork of emotion. The brain doesn't remember the things you see most often. It remembers what mattered. And what matters is often what moved you. Think about it. What do you remember more vividly? A week of routine emails and errands? Or the one day you felt completely alive? Or completely heartbroken? That's not a glitch in your memory. It's the system working as designed. The psychologist William James once said, "An hour filled with thought and emotion lasts longer in retrospect than a day empty of both." And he was right. We don't just live life in real time. We relive it in memory. And so much of our sense of time comes not from the clock, but from the weight of those memories. This is why life seems to speed up when you're emotionally numb, when each day feels flat, when nothing pierces the veil. It's not that you're broken. It's that your emotional compass is muffled, and without it, time flows faster because there's nothing anchoring it in place. But the good news is, you can invite emotion back in, not in a dramatic way, not in a chaotic way, just by giving yourself permission to feel. Pause when something moves you. Let joy land fully. Let sorrow sit with you, unhurried. It sounds simple, but it changes the texture of time. And if you felt disconnected for a long while, start small. Music that stirs something, a movie that makes you cry, a book that touches a memory. These aren't just hobbies. They're lifelines, pulling emotion back into the present, and with it, slowing time. You may not control what happens to you, but you can meet it with presence, with emotion, with honesty, and that presence becomes memory. And that memory becomes the architecture of time, not in years, not in months, but in moments that mattered. So if life feels like a blur, don't chase more time, chase more meaning, because a single minute of truth can outweigh 1,000 days of numbness. And that, quietly, is how you make time feel real again. Imagine watching a sunset one frame at a time. Every color shift, every subtle fade, you'd notice the magic. But play it on fast forward, and it becomes a blur of orange. This is what happens to life when we stop paying attention. Time doesn't actually move faster. We just stop noticing the frames. The mind loves patterns. It seeks predictability, not just to simplify the world, but to survive it. But that efficiency comes at a cost. When your days start looking the same, your brain begins to compress them. The routines you thought made life stable also make it skippable in memory. Breakfast, commute, work, scroll, sleep, repeat. It's not bad, but it's unmemorable. And what's unmemorable feels short in hindsight. There's a term for this: temporal compression. It's the brain's way of summarizing time it doesn't deem significant. You might live 100 days, but if they're nearly identical, your mind might store them as one. That's the illusion of continuity, the sense that life is racing past, not because it is, but because you haven't been present for it. Think about your last vacation, a trip filled with novelty, new sights, smells, challenges, conversations. It probably felt long, rich, even overwhelming. Why? Because you were awake. Every moment demanded attention. Compare that to a week of routine. Same schedule, same route. You lived the hours, but didn't really feel them. The result? A quiet time slip. So, what do? We don't need to abandon routine, but we can inject novelty, even small variations. Take a different route to work, eat something new, write a letter, talk to someone you wouldn't normally talk to. Step outside without your phone and just observe. These aren't productivity hacks. They're presence anchors. Each one is a small rebellion against autopilot. Each one expands time. Another antidote? Reflection. We live so much of life forward, but we understand it backward. Take time to review your day, your week, your emotions. Journaling, meditation, quiet walks. These slow things down. They tell your brain, this mattered, keep it. And over time, those stored moments form the threads of a life that feels full. There's also value in ritual, not just routine. Routine is brushing your teeth. Ritual is lighting a candle while doing it. Routine is walking the dog. Ritual is noticing how the sky looks different today. Ritual is imbuing meaning into repetition, and meaning resists the blur. Here's the deeper truth. Life doesn't actually speed up. It's our awareness that thins. It's not age that compresses time. It's disengagement. But presence is always available, right here, right now. So maybe the hourglass never changed. Maybe it was always pouring the same. And maybe, just maybe, we can learn to watch each grain fall again. One moment, one breath, one ordinary, unforgettable day at a time.